welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Bassan and I am a relationship expert, international speaker and best-selling author of the book Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, social media, TV, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guest, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have a very different one. We have Ethan Willis. Hi, Ethan.
Hi.
I'm not even going to say what we're going to talk about because he's going to spoil it. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Right. So firstly, I need to explain, because otherwise this is going to make me sound like a dodgy person. Ethan Willis is my writer's name rather than my real name.
Yeah.
And I'll come on to the reason why in a minute. But I needed to get that clear right now up front that I'm doing this slightly under an assumed name.
Okay.
So I live in Bournemouth, in my 40s, now married, have children. This is about a story that occurred about 15 years ago when I was going out with this girl. Mm-hmm. And the way I would describe her is that she was a pain.
Yeah.
But I'm proud to say that she was my pain.
Yeah.
So we got together because I interviewed her. Mm-hmm. And she breezed into the office, knocked over a phone, didn't know how to use the photocopier, made dreadful coffee. There were all kinds of reasons why I shouldn't have employed her.
To be quite honest with you, actually, you sound like you're describing me up to this point.
But I always say she was about 5 foot tall with a 6 foot personality. Mm-hmm. She just lit up every room she went into. And I'm really awkward around women because I feel like I have no charm and I've certainly got no self-confidence. I just blush and sort of fold away into the background. Mm-hmm. So we had a Christmas party. I summoned up the courage at the Christmas party to go and talk to her. We had a dance and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I've got this tiny person who wants to dance with me. And from then on, we started going out. We were in a relationship for a long time. She was difficult at times. I drove her crazy. She drove me crazy. And then over a period of time, her behaviour became more and more unreasonable. So with the best will in the world, and no disrespect to yourself, women can be quite difficult if you're a man.
Yeah, and especially at time of the month. I'm the first one to agree to that.
Yes. So a quarter of our lives was spent arguing. Mm-hmm. But they became even more difficult. Her sleeping was very poor. She was always grumpy. So we went, and then we split up because I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is just too difficult. We split up for about a week. She rang me up and she said, look, can we try and sort it out? Let's go on holiday. I've got a friend. He's got an villa in Spain. We'll go there. We'll spend a week together and we'll try and sort it out. Mm-hmm. So I said no, did the whole tough guy, Bruce Willis thing.
Yeah. She
kept asking me. And in the end, I relented. So we went on holiday. We had a really nice time.
How long were you together for altogether? Well, up to that point.
4 and a bit years.
Okay. Carry on.
So long enough that we knew each other.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people quit on relationships too easily.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the second something goes wrong, you go, oh, I'm off now and I'm going to go and find someone else. But there's not perfect, as I think you alluded to when you first started.
Well, I think it's perfect for you. You know, we've all got flaws. Yes. And it's finding someone who's got similar flaws to yours, basically.
Yes, or someone that can tolerate your flaws while you tolerate theirs.
Yeah.
So we came back from holiday on a Friday, both had great tans, really happy. Saw a Saturday, saw a Sunday, everything was fine. Went back to work on the Monday, had a phone call from her work about 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, she's not come in today. I thought she was back in. That's what we've got in our calendar. And I thought because she'd started to take half a sleeping pill to help her sleep. I thought, oh, Sunday night, she must have taken half a sleeping pill and overslept. So I made a joke. I'll go around and wake her up and she'll be really embarrassed. But she's got a great tan, so please forgive her. Mm-hmm. Went round to her flat and I found that she died in her sleep. And she was still in bed, dead, basically.
So first thing, before we carry on, how did you feel at that point? Because that, you know, you're not expecting that at all.
I don't think for a little while that true situation sunk in. You go into a mode that says, okay, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And then it was only about 6 hours later when I'd been interviewed by the police, which was horrendous. I understand the reasons why. She'd gone and I'd gone home, and then I collapsed in my mum and dad's arms. Of course, my mum's answer, as it was to everything, is, I'll make you a cup of tea.
Yeah.
But this was so big, it didn't. Most things work when you have a cup of tea, but this one didn't. So that was that awful feeling where there's this massive, like, girlfriend-shaped hole that's developed, and you don't quite know where you go from that point on. So I was in shock for a little while. And her parents live up in Norfolk, and they came down, so I could then immerse myself in sorting out the funeral and all those kind of things. And it was only when the funeral happened that I think it then really sunk in. Because you see lots of people who you were always used to seeing in the pub, drunk, smiling, singing, happy, that all of a sudden all look in pieces. And then the sheer magnitude of it kicked in.
And how did it, you know, affect your life, so to speak, like at the beginning? How did you manage to kind of carry on? Because obviously the bit you haven't said yet is why she died. So I take it,
and that's the bit,
and an amount of things that you had to deal with too.
So when it first happened, we had no idea why she died. They did an autopsy, and then we got a phone call to say that she died from epilepsy, and then basically, so the lack of sleep and the problems with the sleep were caused by her having tiny epileptic fits at night that were enough to wake her up, but not enough for her to know what they were.
She had no idea.
So she had no idea. And that was, in some ways, so it was quite, it's going to sound be probably the wrong word, but it's quite nice to have a label as to the reason why. You want to understand. You need to comprehend what happened. Yes, and I think it, particularly for me, because everything in my head needs to have an ending and be neatly packaged, having that label attached to it at that point helped me come to terms with it, because it meant I could go away and read up about it and understand, and that helps me deal with it. But what I didn't want to do, so I'm an only child, and a lot of my hobbies are hobbies I do on my own. So things like I love to write and stuff like that. When you're in a situation where that happens, you then shut yourself off from everyone else, to the point that so I took some time off on bereavement leave, and my mum and dad used to slide food around the corner of the door for me in my bedroom and then walk away. I was almost like a prisoner, because it was just feeding time. But I just didn't want to talk to anyone. Not because I was over, it wasn't the tears and stuff like that. It was more about, I just needed to get everything straight in my own head.
I think it's processing it. And I think, you know, I'm an only child too. And when I go through difficult periods, I do exactly the same as you. I need time on my own, and I need to shut the world away. But a lot of people don't get that, because they would need people around them. So they then try to rally around. It actually makes me feel worse, because exactly like you, I need to be cocooned and process.
Yeah, and I think I didn't know what to say to people. So people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm really sad. And I was like, well, what do you want me to say? Do you want me to say sorry? Do you want me to, I don't quite know what you want me to do. So I don't do anything, because that's just easier. So I got fed up with people asking me. I got fed up with people talking to me in a soft voice and putting their head to one side and whispering and thinking I've got really good hearing because this has happened. But what I decided was I was going to write a book. I wanted to write a story. I wasn't strong enough to write it in the first person, so it was a work of fiction. But I wanted to write a story about boy meets girl, girl dies, and how boy felt and what boy then did from that point on. So I wanted to do that because I was, as I say, I was sick of people asking me, so I could give them the book. It was never meant to go anywhere, but I could write the book, give it to people, they would read it and see how I felt.
And that was the way you handled it?
Yes,
originally.
Because I was able to download how I felt without having to repeat the same thing over and over again. So I wrote the book, I gave it to some friends. They said, oh, this is really funny, you should try and get it published. And I went, no one is going to want to buy a book about a girl who buys shoes and drinks too much on a Friday night. And they said, no, but it's funny and it's sad and it's real and all of that stuff. So I didn't think anything more about it. The next thing I knew was when my best friend had arranged for it to go to a publishing house to publish it. Mm-hmm. So we went down the self-publishing route. The first I knew was when I had this box of books arrive saying, here we go, here's your books. Mm-hmm. And I was staggered that happened. And then he kind of encouraged me to put it out there. I spoke to an epilepsy charity. They agreed to give it some marketing and some publicity. And it did all right. It sold a few copies. Mm-hmm. The amazing thing from the back of that, and kind of from that point to today, is that a film producer then approached me randomly saying, my wife bought your book, it's really good. Have you ever thought about making it into a film? And it's like, no, haven't really thought that far at all. But that started a process. And I went away and wrote a version of the script, not quite the version now, but a version. Yeah. And things have then just snowballed from there. And the journey since then has been an absolute roller coaster, not just in terms of the film, but also in terms of how I now feel about that relationship. I kept a diary at the time.
And how do you feel about the relationship?
Do you know what? It doesn't, I think now, because I've had to dissect this relationship in endless versions of a script, the book's now rewritten in the first person based on the diary I kept at the time. And I'm just in the process of doing a theatre version. Mm-hmm. Because I've had to go through that whole process, the pain isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. It is a sense of fondness and a happy memory. Like when you go on a holiday and you come back from the holiday, you don't remember the slightly dodgy tummy you got from eating in a backstreet bar in Spain somewhere. You only remember the sun on your face and the really nice scenery. So it kind of feels a bit like that.
And I think the thing is, obviously, she will always be a part of your life, you know, not just because of the theme and everything else, but just because of what she meant at the time. So
yes,
but I think always would be you.
Yeah, but I think, you know, like with any relationship, relationships end. That's, you know, we don't want them necessarily to, but they just do. And I think it was important that I had a sense of fondness when it came to that relationship finishing. I always try, whenever I've had girlfriends in the past, I've always tried never to end it on a I hate you, no, I hate you kind of level. Yeah. Because, you know, Bournemouth's quite a small place. So if you're going to bump into someone, it would be quite nice to be able to say hello.
Yeah, and I get that some people, you know, don't want to ever see the other person again. I'm more of the view that actually I liked the person. Therefore, if I could like them as a friend, I've gained from the relationship as opposed to like hating each other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've tried to do exactly the same. And I think, as I say, now I don't have that sense of sadness anymore. I have a sense of, I'm really happy that it happened and it might open up a new avenue in my life. And now I have a wife who I adore and we have children and, you know, life's very different, but it's no less or more than something else was. It's just a different part of my life. Yeah.
And one of the things that we spoke about before we did this as well was that obviously there's the epilepsy and you suffer from slight OCD yourself. But in the book, one of the things that's really important to you is that you wanted to show that it was two real people just forming a relationship. And yes, they both had issues, but you know what? That's actually real life. What's not portrayed everywhere else.
Yeah, because I'm not a big fan of people having labels. I think we spend our whole life going, oh, this person's this or this person's that. Why do we do that? what we should do is focus on the person themselves, because not one thing ever defines any one person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are all made up of lots of different parts. We're like a jigsaw puzzle. And even if the pieces don't quite fit or there's a piece missing, we can still enjoy part of the picture. So I think it's really important that we don't define people by what's wrong with them. That shouldn't be the reason.
But you see, one thing that's interesting, I completely agree with you, but I also see a lot of people who will self-diagnose whatever, and then they define themselves by it and they hide behind that label.
Yes, it's easy though, isn't it? It's, if you hide behind a label, it's a bit like putting a jumper over your head so no one can see you. But actually, what's the better thing to do is pull the jumper down and go, actually, this is me. That's part of who I am, but actually I'm a really nice person, or I'm a bit of a womble, or whatever it is with someone, but actually get to know the whole, not just part of them.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what I, you know, from just chatting, that's what I think actually that film is really interesting, because I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that a lot of things are made up and they want to see reality or real life. I know there's no such thing as real, we create our own reality, but there's something that's a little bit more normal, for such a word, than what's on TV or on social media.
Yeah, and I think, so the film, the book and the play will all be very different, mm-hmm. Okay? But that's done deliberately, because people read a book and they go and watch a film and then they go, oh, it's not like the book.
Yeah.
But actually I've taken a different way and gone, they've all got the same journey, but how they get from A to B is different in each of them.
Yeah.
So you can watch the film, you can read the book, and you will get different experiences, because life's journey can't just be one way. So if you do the same story in 3 different ways, you're at least reflecting a little bit more about a part of them.
And I think, as you said, it was about your emotion and how you dissected them. So you went through different kind of emotions.
Yes. And I don't think there can ever be one book or one film or whatever that necessarily captures that. Mm-hmm. Because even in a book, and you can obviously make books as sprawling as you like, but you can't capture all that sense of emotion. So by doing it in 3 different ways, I am able now to capture the 3 different parts and the 3 different emotions that were part of that journey.
So just enlighten us a little bit. What are the 3 main emotions?
So the film is about, let me start with the book and I'll tell you why in a second. So the book is about, it's a bit rawer, it's a bit sadder, and it's a bit more of a self-discovery.
Yeah.
So the book is, because the book's now written in the first person, the book is how I felt at any one particular moment. In a film, you can't necessarily do that.
No.
So the film takes the main character on a journey, but it's more of a physical journey. So in the book, it's an emotional journey. In the film, it is a physical journey. So he goes to Ireland to scatter his girlfriend's ashes, because that's where she was born. Mm-hmm. But he's scared of water, and he scatters the ashes in the water. So we've made the fears from the book real and tangible in the film.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to then do something completely different with the play, and I'm working with a playwright local who has like 1 million years experience of doing plays. And with the play, what we're going to do is we are going to have the play itself's a fairly serious play, deals only with the wake. So we're going to make it a 1-scene play where we do it in a wake after the funeral, and we then find out about the girl.
Which I think is a fantastic idea, because you get loads of different perspective, different people, different everything.
Yeah. And the other part of that is then the dead girl, and this is going to sound cheesy, it's really not, I promise you, but the dead girl, only the audience see. Yeah. So she is at the front of the stage, and as these people are coming up to the guy going, I'm really sorry, I really liked her, and all the rest of it, her asides to that are the humour.
Yeah.
So she'll be going, he didn't like me at all, he was annoying, all that kind of stuff. But her asides are what gives the humour. And then I have to give away the ending to the play, because I think the ending is one of the few strokes of genius I've ever had, is that the last bit of the wake is her favourite band are playing a song live on stage. We see the main male character drink and drink and drink slowly, but throughout the play. And at the end, he's quite drunk. So she's watching him kind of loosen his tie and get more into it. And then when they start playing the song, he gets up on stage and tunelessly joins in. And the second he gets up on stage, she blows him a kiss and leaves, because she knows he's now at the point to carry on with the rest of his life without her. And I wanted, so all of them have positive endings, because although it was really sad what happened, and I've had so many people go, I don't know how you cope. Well, you cope because you have to, because otherwise you're going to be the scary one at parties, sat in a corner that no one talks to. And I don't want to be that person. See, this is about trying to make a difference. I made her a promise at the Chapel of Rest when I saw her that I would do the right thing. And the right thing wasn't about keeping in touch with all our friends, because actually they were mainly her friends, not mine, because I'm quite quiet and she wasn't. It wasn't about keeping in touch with her parents, because they don't agree with me doing this. So it wasn't about any of that. It was about now me realising that I'm now doing the right thing, and she would love this, but I'm not doing it as a homage to her. I'm doing it for me, but just with a little sort of tip of the cap to say thank you for being in my life for a while, and we had a really good time, but life moves on.
But I think the other thing as well, for me, it brings awareness, because, you know, there's so many people who may not know they've got epilepsy. I mean, I've got a friend, French originally, and, you know, she came to Cardiff from France for a year, you know, university exchange type thing. And I went to see her because obviously I was already living here. And about a week later, she was diagnosed with having epilepsy and having to be flown back to France. And she was 21, and she never knew up to that point that was the case.
Yeah. But I think, so we've got the support of epilepsy charities around the world, all want to market the book, the film, the play, and all the rest of it. We've also got Mind involved. So what we're trying to do, we've not sort of made this a noble charity project. As I say, they are elements of all the three strands, but they like the idea that it is not about mental health. It is not about epilepsy.
As you say, it's not about a label.
No, it is a real life story, people dealing with real things, real issues, and it's just part of who they are.
And I think also, like, you know, from talking, you said something earlier I was going to pick up on, but, you know, we're talking. It is about the self-discoveries, the relationship with the self, and it's how to deal with grief, how to deal with difficult situations. As you said, you know, you kind of had to face up to it because you didn't want to be the sad one rocking in a corner at a party.
No, I didn't. And I
face up to stuff.
Yes, and I think if you can face up to things and deal with things and be calm about how you deal with them, you can achieve things. If you run around and you're doing a lot of hand wringing and all of that stuff, people don't know how to deal with you. But if you can deal with things in a calm way, I think people have more respect for you. I hope. And
so I know you've kind of half answered that question already, but how do you think it's affecting your life if you look back the last 15 years and where you are now?
I think my wife would say I spend too much time dealing with it, and she's probably right. It's been a bit all-encompassing at times because I have a full-time job, and obviously I have responsibilities to my wife and my children. So it is quite a big juggling act. But I think what it has done is it's given me a different sense of perspective. I think when relationships end, you know, at some point, if you really wanted to, you could send them a Christmas card or a birthday card or send them a text. I can't ever do that because that's gone and it's past and all the rest of it. So it's kind of a line. People go, oh, I draw a line under this relationship. They don't really, because you know that person, you might bump into them again or whatever. I'm never going to do that. So I've had to draw that line under it. And you can then either be really miserable for the rest of your life, or you can go, actually, I want to do something positive and take the positives out of that experience and turn it into something else.
Which I think it is a very good message, because it is what we need to do about the bad stuff. Otherwise, you just become,
it weighs you down.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to just touch on one other thing. So we asked about my name. So I have no desire to be famous, no desire at all. So I wanted to kind of, I say write it anonymously. I think we're beyond that stage. When I originally came up with the idea, it was meant to be anonymous, but I think it's morphed into something bigger than that now anyway. But I want to write. I always wanted to write, even when I was a kid. So to be able to write under a different name is good, because then I can write a different genre under another name. Yeah. And again, they'll not be linked.
And do you enjoy that? Because is it different part of your personalities that you can then express in different ways?
Yes, exactly. So I quite like to write a thriller. And in fact, I always used to make the comment to my girlfriend who died that I always wanted to write either thrillers or romances, but my life was neither romantic or thrilling. So I've done the romance one. So I'm going to have a go at doing a thriller one next, but I'll write that under a different name. Because it's not about being famous. It's not about being in front of the cameras, although obviously we're doing this. But generally...
But people can't see you.
People can't see me. But generally, I'm very keen to... having children now, it's really important that they can see that you can do anything with a bit of persistence. I didn't know anyone in the film business. I didn't know anyone who'd written a book. I didn't know anyone who wrote plays, and all of that stuff's now going to happen.
And actually, it's a bit of a story with that as well, because you've seen parts of human nature that went particularly nice in the process, haven't you?
Oh, yes. So my original film producer, I had a really good friend who gave me £20,000 towards film development for the film. Naively, I gave him the money to then obviously do the film production and start pre-production. And he used that money to work on another project that he was working on. I lost a friend because of it. I had to go to court in London. She turned up with her barrister. He said he was filming, I don't know, somewhere like Alaska. So he couldn't come, so he brought his barrister. I went along with my dad. But I had 600 pages of emails proving that I knew nothing about it. Was in court all day. We came out of court and I won.
Yeah.
But in some ways, so my wife made a very valid point of, why are you still doing this and putting yourself through this hell? And it's a very valid point and a question I've asked myself a lot over the time. But in some ways, it made me more determined to do it. And now I have a producer who is amazing, and there's now a proper website, and it now feels like it's a real project. Yeah. We have I'm very humbled that people, so I can kind of release this information. So one of the members of the cast is in the film Versailles, or in the programme Versailles, which I've never seen. And the other guy is in the In-Betweeners, which also I've never seen, but people have heard of it. So I'm very humbled that these people with these kind of careers want to do something that I created.
Yeah.
And it's kept my feet firmly on the ground, because when I came home, when I first found out this news, my youngest was only a baby and she kind of needed her nappy changing. So that
brought you back to earth.
Yeah, that's the grounding stuff. But in some ways, that's really good, because that keeps me grounded. And my wife keeps me very grounded and stops me disappearing up my own bum, because I think I'm so important.
At the same time, I think, it's also, it is an achievement.
Yes, it is. And I want my children to be proud. And I want my children to know that whatever they want to do in life, they can do. Yeah. And my relationship now with my wife has given me amazing children who I adore, and my wife who I adore. And we might never have got together had all those other steps not fallen into place. And I remember on my very first date with my wife, and we met in a supermarket, and she had the now oldest one in a trolley. And I bumped into her, and then I kind of flicked up the orange that I knocked out of her hand and gave it to the baby, and the baby was laughing, and I expected her to be really impressed, and she just kind of rolled her eyes at me and walked off.
Stopping you just a second, one of the things I always say is to be open to opportunities, and that supermarkets are a good place, right?
Yes, they are.
I just want to point that out at this stage. Then you can carry on with the story.
And then I was behind her in the queue. And I said, look, I'm really sorry about earlier. And she apologised. And I took a DVD player round to her and some DVDs. That was the very first date we went on, because, she was saying she was a single mum. She never gets to go out. So I thought, right, well, I'll bring the movies to her then. And from then on, I don't think we've ever really been apart particularly. She's amazing. She's a strong woman. She's a teacher. She looks after the house. The house is always immaculate. The children are always incredible. I have so much more admiration for what she does than me doing this. But as a relationship, I know it's really difficult for her, because I'm sure in her head she thinks, oh, well, you love your ex-girlfriend more than me. And I don't, because it's beyond that now. It's beyond that love thing. But it was a relationship at the time I was really proud of. And this feels like the right thing to do. Yeah.
And I think sometimes, the right thing to do for you may not be the right thing to do for someone else.
No, but I'm sure when we're multi-millionaires on the back of this movie.
Yes, you'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, my wife will then forgive me for any of the things I put her through at the moment.
Well,
that's the plan.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that story, because it's very different. It's a very different angle. It's a very different way of handling things. And as you say, it does show that if you put your mind to something, you can.
Yes. And I hope anyone out there who's had rubbishy relationships, even if they never want to get it published, just write it down, because it's quite a good way to get rid of it.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I just say one last thing before we go?
Yeah.
I want people to go and check out the movie website if they can. So that's www.blueastheskymovie.com. Go check it out and keep it in mind and see what you think.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you.
No problem at all. And for everybody else, if you've enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.